Hello everyone, my name is Radu and I am a PhD student working under the supervision of Professor Ravinder Dahiya at the Bendable Electronics and Sensing Technologies Research Group at the University of Glasgow. Today, I'm going to present our research entitled Analysis of a Soft Haptic Device with Integrated Tactile Sensor and Actuator for Optimal Design. During this presentation, I will briefly explain what SensAct devices are and what are the core working principles of such devices. Then, I will present the experimental and simulated analysis we performed on the SensAct devices. And then, towards the end of the presentation, I will talk about a brief overview of what can be achieved with this novel soft haptic device. So first off, SensAct devices are a form of electronic skin. However, current e-skin lacks some key capabilities that human skin possesses. In short, e-skin is not yet capable of behaving like human skin. The mechanoreceptors in human skin are tightly coupled with muscles, and as a result, the skin's stiffness can be tuned to adapt to different circumstances. Our design approach for the SensAct device was to tackle this problem by integrating both sensing and actuating into one device. The feedback loop which results from this coupling has the potential to tune the e-skin stiffness. The working principles of the SensAct are fairly straightforward. It is a soft electromagnetic actuator embedded into a piezoresistive sensing layer. Essentially, the actuator is formed of an inductor and a magnet encapsulated into a soft sensing layer, enabling it to respond to pressure and create vertical displacement through the magnetic force. The inductor is responsible for moving the magnet and creating the displacement, and essentially, it is a planar spiral coil. In this image, on the bottom part, we can see clearly the layout of the SensAct device. The planar spiral coil is at the bottom of the device, and the strong neodymium magnet sits above it. This whole actuating layer is then embedded into a piezoresistive sensing layer. In the top part of the image, as we can see, due to the small form factor of one single SensAct device, multiple such devices can be incorporated into a large-scale electronic skin. We performed several exploratory experiments to characterize the device's performance. First and foremost, the effect of joule heating in the sensing layer was studied. For this, we looked at the drift in the sensor's resistance. This effect occurs because during actuation, the coil transfers heat into the surrounding sensing layer, causing a change in its resistance. The first figure shows the result of characterizing the sensing layer using different applied forces with no current going through the coil. As the force on the sensing layer increases, there is a decrease in the resistance of the layer. This is a result of the graphite particles coming in closer together to form a conduction matrix. We found that the relative change in resistance was approximately 20%. In the next image, we can observe that resistance increases as the current through the coil increases. The heat from the coil increases, thus influencing the resistance of the sensing layer. The actuating coil was excited with 180, 160, 130, and 90 milliamps. It can be observed in the inset that there was no significant drift in resistance for approximately 2 seconds after the initial excitation. For currents above 90 milliamps, the temperature rises abruptly and significantly interferes with the piezoresistive layer. Following the experimental studies, a simulation study was performed in COMSOL multiphysics to further our understanding of the actuation part of the device. The SensAct was recreated in a 3D environment using the homogenized multi-turn coil model and a neodymium magnet. These two components were then embedded into an equal-flex layer with similar mechanical properties as the piezoresistive layer the device actually had. The entire device was then simulated inside an air domain with gravity in order to obtain realistic displacement values. This figure shows the three-dimensional model used for the COMSOL simulation. We can see that the actual SensAct device is simplified as we're using a homogenized multi-turn coil. So it is not a spiral, but rather it is a block that behaves like a multi-turn circular coil. Now let's examine the results of the simulation. In the first image, we can see the interaction between the coil and the magnet. We can clearly observe that the excited coil is exerting a force on the magnet. The resultant force between the coil and the magnet was calculated each time for different separation distances between these two components, for both small currents in a range between 1 milliamp to 48 milliamps, and larger currents. For this we used 1 amp, 5 amps, and 10 amps. Additionally, the small inset plots show a linear relationship between the applied current and the resultant force acting upon the magnet for all the currents tested. Additionally, the small inset plots show a linear relationship between the applied current and the resultant force acting upon the magnet for all the Additionally, the small inset plots show a linear relationship between the applied current and the resultant force acting upon the magnet for all the currents tested. This relationship is very important during the design and fabrication steps of future SensAct iterations. Moving on, these simulations can be used to optimize the design parameters of the SensAct, enabling us to push the boundaries of what electronic skin can do. Our simulation study uncovered a fast and accurate way of measuring the displacement of the device. In turn, simulation can be used to optimize the key design parameters in order to minimize the effect of joule heating, while also increasing the amount of displacement the SensAct is able to exert. Finally, SensAct could be integrated into a large-scale, fully flexible and biomimetic e-skin capable of performing just like a human skin. This novel computational design paradigm could potentially open the field of soft robotics to a world of new applications, ranging from human-computer interaction all the way to large-area multimodal sensorization for industrial robots. In conclusion, we studied the effect of joule heating on the sensing layer of the SensAct device and simulating the interaction between the spiral coil and the magnet, studying how currents outside the so-called safety zone of the coil can significantly increase the displacement created by the device. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the main institutions and funding bodies which helped us with this research: University of Glasgow, UKRI, EPSRC, and the James Watt Nanofabrication Center. Thank you very much for your attention and for attending our presentation. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Thank you.